Every year, millions of families face the unknown. Rare diseases that change their lives forever. Today we share their voices, their strength, and their hope. But beyond these diagnoses are real people, real families, and real stories, each battling the profound impact of this relentless disease. These are the voices of resilience, of courage, of families who refuse to let a diagnosis define them.
Hello, my name is Terry Holden. I was diagnosed with Addison's disease, also known as adrenal insufficiency, in April 2018, after my adrenal glands failed completely. I was put on medication to replace the hormones that the glands produce, and was naive enough to think I could go back to living my normal life.
I first became aware of this disease in January of 2020 through the unfortunate circumstances of my son being diagnosed with this disease. After his diagnosis, I got to learn about the disease and spent the next 7 months seeing how cruel this disease really is and how it affected my son, Jaden, and took everything away from him.
On November 1st, I went into the hospital and the doctor had told me that he was going to do one more test before putting me under exploratory surgery. The test came back positive with Addison's disease. My family didn't know what Addison's disease was, and neither did I.
He first presented with attention deficit signs, and so he was diagnosed with that. And then he started to drag his foot when he was walking, and then the school noticed that, and we got a diagnosis of ALD.
It wasn't until April 2019 when I went to my endocrinologist for a regular checkup that I asked to get my thyroid checked. Sure enough, my test results showed that my antibodies were through the roof. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. But my journey didn't stop there. In March of 2020, when the world went into lockdown, things took a drastic turn for me. I couldn't get out of bed. My blood pressure dropped dangerously low, and I started fainting.
My journey began in my early 20s when I experienced a sudden episode so severe that my roommates rushed me to the ER, fearing I was having a heart attack. That visit was just the first of many. Over the next 30 years, I battled overwhelming fatigue, heart palpitations, migraines, chronic pain, and difficulty coping with stress.
I had all the symptoms of Addison's, including sleeping up to 16 hours a day, had intense salt cravings, stomach pain, tan skin, and my 60/40 blood pressure was so low that my vision was blackout upon standing, and I got winded with a single flight of stairs.
I've been navigating adrenomyeloneuropathy, or AMN, though my journey began with a diagnosis of Addison's disease at the age of 16. Before then, I was noticeably unwell, underweight, fatigued, and exhibiting hyperpigmentation. I had very little energy and constantly felt unwell. My parents assumed I was just a lazy teenager when I told them I was too tired to help with tasks.
We figured out that we had ALD because my dad was diagnosticated a couple years ago. My dad started having issues walking, and after 2 years of diagnosis, the doctors determined that he had ALD. After that, we immediately were tested, all my family. I have 2 other sisters. I have 2 boys, two sons. And in the test, obviously, we all of us as ALD.
Then in July 2022, we got an answer by pure chance, or what we now call a miracle. He was diagnosed with adrenal insufficiency, a life-threatening condition where the body fails to produce vital hormones. In September 2022, he began lifelong treatment. But before we could even process this, another devastating diagnosis came: X-linked adrenoleukodystrophy, or XALD.
My eldest brother had cerebral ALD. My other brother now has adrenomyeloneuropathy, and for me, I'm an asymptomatic carrier of ALD. When I say I offer a unique perspective, it's because I witnessed a lot in my childhood. My parents went through great lengths to keep my brother alive, financially, physically, and emotionally.
I was 12 years old when I first started to develop my first symptoms, but I didn't get my Addison's diagnosis until I was 24. It took 12 years for me to finally be diagnosed, and those years were filled with a lot of suffering, misdiagnoses and mistreatment at the hands of doctors and the medical system.
Educating myself about Addison's disease was critical. Some endocrinologists don't provide enough or any information about how to increase steroid doses for illness and stress, and when or even how to use our emergency Solu-Cortef injection.
A 16-year decline, and that's devastating too, because you're watching your child slowly disappear. And then 8 years ago, he passed away. He just seemed to have something infectious that wouldn't resolve, and they never did really sort of get to the bottom of it. And
adjusting to Addison's disease continues to be a lifelong struggle for me. Everyday stresses, going to work, having a baby, death, grief, moving, traveling, eating in different restaurants, all have had an impact on my life with Addison's. Everyday stresses that people have and take for granted increase my stress and have an impact on my overall health and wellness.
I was diagnosed with a pheochromocytoma, a tumor in my adrenal gland. This melanocortin secreting tumor explained all of the symptoms I had been dealing with for 30 years.
An extensive series of tests. Basic neurological signs were present, sustained clonus and a positive Babinski reflex, which are often indicative of nerve damage.
I haven't been able to return back to work since 2021 due to the daily struggles I face, such as muscle weakness, lower back pain, numbness, spasms on my legs, which I get Botox every 3 months to help, and it does, but after the 10th week, I start to feel it come back.
We do every 6 months MRI. Every 6 months we test his adrenal glands as well. Once a year we do a neuropsychologist analysis for him.
I now realise that I needed to take this more seriously. After talking things over with my endocrinologist, we put a plan into action to find out how far I could walk without my blood pressure dropping, and then how much further if I added more medication.
I remember many of my after-school evenings were spent going to and from Sick Kids Hospital to visit my brother. I remember the closets full of oxygen tanks and medical supplies because our house was turned into an ICU. I remember the kind nurses who became like family because my brother needed 24-hour care. I remember the resentment built up between my parents. I remember all the sounds of the ventilator, the heart rate monitor, the suction machine, the backup generator.
When the puffer they prescribed me didn't work, these symptoms continued to get worse, and I started to lose my hearing, my vision, and then I lost full control of my body when I was running. I kept falling and hitting my head because of this, and I even broke my wrist while running the 200 meters at Nationals. So ultimately, I had to give up on my passion for track and field.
The hardest part is that these conditions are invisible to others. I look fine on the outside, but on the inside, I am battling every single day. When I was diagnosed, my cortisol levels were undetectable. And now I am dependent on steroids to manage and stay alive. I have to educate others and constantly advocate for myself.
Many doctors are unaware of Addison's disease and its impact on those patients around them. Many times I was misdiagnosed. Many times I was left alone. Many times my partner and my family has been left to advocate for me and speak for me and pray that I'm going to get the treatment that I need to survive in the hospital.
Living with Addison's disease is easier with access to compassionate and knowledgeable care from an endocrinologist. We have to remember that these specialists are not the experts in adrenal insufficiency, but rather the whole endocrine system. We are still rare patients to them.
They teach doctors in medical school, when you hear hoofbeats, look for horses, not zebras. Meaning when somebody comes to you with an illness, look for common causes and not rare illnesses. I partly understand why they teach this, but another part of me doesn't, because there are so many of us with rare diseases. And unfortunately, a lot of us have similar stories of doctors just not taking us seriously and refusing to look for zebras just because they weren't as common as the horses.
And I know diseases shouldn't define us, but this has been a huge part of my life and my identity. I've made deliberate choices because of how early I knew, and that also gave me time to grieve.
What would make my life easier? Well, simply being heard.
Without Facebook, I mean, every time I went to an appointment, I would say, can you connect me with other parents that are going through this disease?
Medical education and patient-centered care, for one. One of the most critical changes needed is better education for healthcare professionals. Doctors must understand that when treating someone with a rare disease, that the patients often know much more than they do. So they need to, give them credit that they know what they're talking about. They need to listen and trust their patients.
Support from rare disease, chronic illness, and adrenal insufficiency communities is invaluable, as friends and family often cannot fully understand these experiences. The Canadian Addison Society has been immensely supportive in helping me manage my day-to-day needs and providing tips on dosing schedules, traveling, and dealing with stressful events. Now that I'm more experienced with this disease, I'm able to offer that support to others and give back to my community.
I also raise awareness by sharing my story like I am here today, hoping that others with rare diseases won't have to go through the same struggles.
I hold fears that in Canada we have more specialists to treat these kind of issues.
There's almost this instant bond when I meet someone within the community, not having to explain all of this because they have similar heartaches or obstacles, breaks down barriers for deeper connection, and it's amazing.
Families, you play a critical role in recognizing concerns with your child and advocating for workup to be done. Healthcare providers, through their expertise and vigilance, can help identify symptoms early, provide accurate diagnoses, and guide families in managing these conditions effectively.
Now that I'm diagnosed and I have a good doctor and I'm on a successful treatment plan, my life has become easier than pre-diagnosis, but my life is still quite hard because of chronic illness. I find that there is absolutely nothing that's more frustrating than being held back from something you really, really want to do because of symptoms.
My goal is to raise awareness for Addison's disease. Through advocacy work, we can help make sure that marginalized communities, as those with rare diseases, may be seen and be heard.
And speaking of community, I'm thankful that I've found ways to give back. Sharing my story isn't easy, but it's necessary for people to know the impacts of rare diseases like ALD.
ALD doesn't wait. It can progress silently, and if we miss it, it might be too late.
We're excited because this year we're going to be screening for X-linked adrenoleukodystrophy for the first time. This will be the first program in Canada and one of the first programs in the world to screen for X-linked adrenoleukodystrophy.
Together, we will continue to raise awareness, advocate for early diagnosis, and push for improved treatments so that all those affected with these rare conditions can enjoy the brightest future.
Awareness can change lives. Early diagnosis can mean better treatment, more time, and more hope. But we need your help to spread the word. This Rare Disease Day, we celebrate strength, resilience, and the power of community. Together, we are heard. Together, we are seen. Together, we are.
Proud to be rare.
I'm proud to be rare.
Proud to be rare.
I'm proud to be rare.
Proud to be rare.
I'm proud to be rare.
I'm proud to be brave.
I'm proud to be rare.
I'm proud to be rare.
Proud to be rare.
We are proud to be rare.
I'm proud to be rare.
To be rare.